Hello and welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time here. Um, I recently made a road trip to Greenville, South Carolina. If you didn't see this video, the Solar Return Festival or celebration, you should check it out. It was a great time. Met a bunch of like-minded people. Amazing music performances. Media Bear right here. So that was cool. If you didn't see this video, go check it out. Also, I wanted to ask you, I'll leave the link for this, if you could hop over and give me a follow on Odyssey. That would be awesome, because even schmucks like me can make a little bit of money on here, so that's cool. And see, I reposted this UAP video here. You can reshare other people's content, so that's cool. But yeah, I'll put the link for this. Follow me there. That'd be awesome. So I think that's all the intro crap. Let's get into it. So, this is like a local story. Well, like a lot of the stuff I look at is kind of local, but I had a thought one day just about, you know how politically correct and whatnot everything is. We always grew up hearing this story of this guy, Old Black Joe, and I just got to thinking, wondering if you're even still allowed to say Old Black Joe, right? Because, you know how things are. So I got to looking, and this, I'm not gonna bullshit you, this was probably one of the first articles I came to, but it answered all my questions and got me asking a million more, so it was good enough for me. But yeah, this guy Joseph Johns was an escaped slave and Union Township mountain man, right? So this photograph, allegedly taken shortly before his death in 1906, is also the only photograph of him at all. So, there's that. I have my own questions about some stuff, but we'll just go through what this says first, because it's interesting enough on its own. Cool. I think everyone around here grew up here. If you went on a local field trip, this is the kind of thing you heard, or it's tied right into well, it's later in this article, but the Bayshore Scout Reservation, it's a Boy Scout thing, because this guy was a mountain man and all that. So he was a collier, an escaped slave from Virginia, made his way to Pennsylvania sometime in the mid 1800s to the Blue Mountains in Union Township. So this is where I am, basically. This is right up the road for me, so it's interesting. Again, well known among county residents, especially the Boy Scouts of Bayshore Scout Reservation. So, this is where they take the Boy Scouts to rough it, learn all their skills and whatnot. Moonshine Road, Moonshine Church, which is where he's buried. We'll get to that. Nevertheless, become one of the county's best known historical figures. So he's one of the best known, right? And they go on that he was beloved. He was invited to Sunday dinners and all sorts of stuff, right? He played with the local children and all this, but there's no facts about him at all, which just to me doesn't make any sense. Again, the only known photograph of Johns at his hut on Blue Mountain, taken a month prior to his 1906 death. Again, he was a beloved friend of everyone, and he lived in a stick mud shack. Now, they say that this is common for colliers, this is what they did, but I still don't get it. And then it gets weirder. A short column on Johns appearing in the Daily News on the day of his death, February 7th, 1906, contained many of the details that would come to define his story, including a claim that he was... So this is the whole thing. A claim He was 10 years old when George Washington died in 1799. As this would put him at 117 years old, the paper also states he was the oldest resident of the entire state at the time. So, now, alright, so I'm thinking, right, that's a thing. People used to live longer and stuff, right? But I'm also thinking, like, this guy's a slave. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. In theory, he would have been, like, abused and stuff, right? If he's a slave, and then he, like, lived in a shack burning stuff and lived to be 117, but whatever. I'm down. I'm going to go on. Yeah, this is what they talk about. He was a beloved member of the community. And then, okay, so I thought this is where, like, this started to blow my mind here. So a local anthropologist, he was looking into this, and even he said that it seems like the story has been cleaned. That the first thing they tell you always is that he's an escaped slave and a mountain man, and everybody loved him. And but other than that, there's nothing about his life. So it's almost like they're just sort of trying to bolster how accepting the community was more than it's about him at all. It's kind of weird. So I sort of didn't even think of that until this dude was saying it, and then I was like, that is pretty weird. So here's his death certificate. And then what I started to think was, if he was so well liked, wouldn't people know? Wouldn't they have talked to him and known things about his life? And not only that, but if he was so well known, wouldn't they would trust what he says, right? I mean, I don't know. So, and they go on to talk about how super centenarians are rare, 1,000 times rarer than centenarians. And since he was a slave, it's impossible, or all but impossible, to verify his birth. So then, he's buried in Moonshine Church, and his gravestone says he's 112. So again here, his reported recollection of George Washington's death in 1799 and the bombardment of Fort McHenry in 1814 would seem to indicate the age of 117, reported in the news at the time of his death. And then, they tell you about being a collier, talk about Governor Dick. So there's a hiking spot around here called Governor Dick, but it was also named after an escaped slave. I guess that's what we do around here. So then here they talk about this. Anecdotal stories suggest Johns was more integrated into the community life than one might think. Johns was known to leave his post to attend services at Moonshine Church, eat Sunday dinners with local families, kiss heads of local infants, okay, and visit local shops to buy candy for children. But nobody knew anything about his life, or nobody believes anything he says about when he was born or what he lived through. And then they say that being a collier would distance him from the community. And then they talk about how colliers were known to be like I can't think of what's the word they use, like boogeymen, sort of. They were just like weird, like woods people, like mountain men. So here's Moonshine Church. This is a whole thing around here too. There's all kinds of lore. But his headstone's here. Let me see. Oh yeah, so then finally at the end here we get to what I was originally trying to even look up. So we're putting up a monument for this dude. In the 90s, and it was controversial if they could call him Old Black Joe or not. But again, they claim that that's what he went by. Again, community fixture. John's reputation as a community fixture in a nearly all-white community in the 1800s is still being debated today. Pennsylvania was the destination for many escaped slaves, but prejudice was far from non-existent. Fact. Some reports on John's mention him, reputation as a bit of a local boogeyman. So like, but then they say like basically the opposite. Testimonies from residents who claim to have been friends with Johns in their childhood would seem to indicate a friendly, if somewhat reserved man who was generally accepted, but he lived in a mud hut and nobody fucking believes him about how old he is. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. So what my other thought was about this, about him being 117. Let's see, where's where they talk about this? Here. Okay, so maybe, if he was, he was 10 years old in 1799, so he was born in 1789, right? And then supposedly came to Pennsylvania in the mid-1800s. So my thought was, perhaps he was 10 years old when the person allegedly historically known as George Washington died. But if we are thinking that there was some kind of reset or something in the early 18 or mid 1800s or around then that means this dude would have lived through it if he was indeed from then. So I was thinking maybe what he said is true, but it wasn't necessarily the year 1799, if that makes sense. I'm hoping I can say this right. Like if the timeline and everything was screwed up in his lifetime, then maybe when this happened it's 1799 to us by our dating, but it wouldn't have been to him. You know what I mean? So maybe his age is skewed because of that. Because he lived through like a reset, Or maybe this is a whole fabricated story based on this one picture of the guy. That's possible too. Maybe he's just an escaped slave who happened to be 117 too. I mean, I don't know. It certainly got me wondering though. Just the way that I bet almost anyone you talk to around here would know this story. So that kind of just makes me suspicious about it. Anyway, so at the bottom, where is it? This just kind of got me on another thing. Oh yeah. So the Blue-Eyed Six, it mentions the Moonshine Church here. So the Blue-Eyed Six was this local, these 6 dudes plotted and murdered this dude for like 10 grand in insurance money. And like, I'm not getting all the way into it here, but this is just one of those things too. Almost anyone you talk to, and like I've heard that like I'm related to one of these people. Like anyone you talk to is like related, like, because I guess everybody thinks it's cool to be related to a murderer. I don't know. I don't really get it. But yeah, there's like a whole thing about haunting and the Moonshine Church and the Blue-Eyed Six and blah blah blah. I mean, it's interesting, but this just reminded me of, I'm about done, just bear with me here. I came across this before. This is the Schuylkill County Prison, and as you can see, it's a fucking castle. So obviously when I saw this, I had to start looking into it. Wow, you can see through this kid. I didn't even notice that before. I was sitting here looking at this before. You can see. This is just a long exposure thing. Look, ye olde ladder lean. Holy shit. Shout out to UAP, man. So look at this. There's a huge thing up here. Look at all these wires. So yeah, I had to start looking into this, and then I got onto oops. this story. Joseph Christock was the last man hanged at this prison in 1911. And it was pretty interesting. Because down here, before he was executed, he wrote like a memoir of his whole life. And I've read through this already. It's like he was just a criminal his whole life. Like, he would work somewhere long enough to find someone to rob and would like shoot somebody or almost get shot robbing them, and go to the next town and do the same thing, work for a while, find someone to rob. So this is interesting. It's like its own video, this place and this stuff, but this is interesting as hell too. This comment at the bottom. It's from 2012. My grandfather, Charles, was assistant warden at this time, and Joseph Christock made an astrological drawing the night before hanging, which I possess, along with a photo of my grandfather, Joseph Christock, and the warden, which I also possess. I am now 79 and living in Dunedin, Florida. Like, I was almost tempted to email this guy, because, like, but, you know, I mean, not to be, you know, but, like, if he was 79 in 2012, the dude might be dead. I mean, just being real. But, like, what? I'm super interested in this guy making an astrological drawing before he was hung in 1911 in this castle. Like, that just, I mean, come on. That's fucking awesome. So anyway, like I said, this is a whole, I'll have to like make a video about this another time, but this is a deep tease for it. So again, if you can come follow me here on Odyssey, that would be great. Thank you for watching. If you watched this long, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. See you next time.